Shannon Gunter here with Therapy by Shannon. I'm based out of Louisville, Kentucky, and today we are going to focus on breakups. I know, exciting, right? But these difficult times do need to be talked about. So, kind of no matter who is doing the breaking up, breakups are very hard, and the tough parts don't always end after that official breakup conversation happens. These feelings linger and it kind of follows us around for a while. It's kind of like near impossible to break up with someone and then never have them cross your mind again. Downfall to memories is they don't always leave our brain when the person physically leaves our life. So it kind of could be as simple as like seeing or hearing things that remind you of your ex-partner for just that brief moment, or maybe it's like physically running into them. Maybe you live in the same city or go to the same school. You're definitely going to have like a higher probability of doing that if you do have close proximity. So kind of one of the hardest things to do after a breakup, but definitely a must do, is to learn the appropriate coping skills that work for you. So when you do kind of think about your ex or possibly run into them, that it doesn't completely derail your day and that you are able to use these skills to get back on track to go about your day to day. So I hear you guys all out there being like, thanks for the information, thanks for the coping skills talk, but that's not for me. I'm not going to run into my ex. I'm going to avoid them like the plague. And I get it. Like, that would be really nice in certain situations, and I'm right there with you, but it's not always the case for everyone. You can't control other people's actions, and we can't really alter our entire schedules just to make sure that we never see someone again. That just wouldn't be fair to us. And so what we can do though is that we can plan. And if you know me, you know I'm a big old planner and I love planning. So we're going to focus on kind of 6 steps that you can do to kind of better handle these uncomfortable situations that running into your ex brings up. And we want to make sure we're keeping you safe in the process as well. So kind of first thing we're going to do is number 1, we want to consider the circumstance and react accordingly. So you want to take some time, do some reflection, take into consideration how your relationship ended. Was it on neutral terms? Was there kind of unhealthy dynamics between the two of you? Was there any abuse in that relationship? Take some time to kind of think back and react accordingly to the situation that you have at hand. So kind of possible scenario is like, let's say you're walking into Taco for lunch, and from the sidewalk looking through the window you see your ex standing in line. So option 1, you could walk in and get your lunch, and if you happen to make eye contact, smile and maybe have some small talk. 2, you could wait outside for a few moments till your ex gets out of the line, and then you could go in. Number 3, you could not get your lunch there today and maybe go somewhere else. Kind of for those that ended more on neutral grounds, I'd say option 1 or 2 are going to be a good fit for you. But for those that ended on more toxic terms, option number 3 might be a good option for you. Sorry, no tacos today, but sometimes you have to remember that in order to keep yourself safe, you may need to avoid contact with this person altogether. And remember, like, keeping yourself safe needs to be the number 1 factor at all times in these scenarios. So just kind of always keep that in the back of your mind. So after considering that, you're going to want to like accept that this is going to happen again. So dependent on the size of your city or your school or whatever population you're working with, or maybe like if you run with the same crowd, like you may run into your ex again. So prepare yourself for this and put the work into yourself to make sure that you're in a space where you can be comfortable with this possibility and not have to completely alter like where you go and who you hang out with in order to avoid your ex. So like if you're still having feelings for your ex and find yourself getting very emotional even thinking about them, like this is a sign that you're needing to spend a little bit more time grieving the loss of that relationship and doing some like self-care and exploration around this topic. And then after you do that, you can like remind yourself that like you're not obligated to catch up with them when you do run into them. So remember that you are broken up. You don't really have an obligation to them. You don't have an obligation to catch up with them or to act normal when you're around them. If you do run into your ex and you aren't in that emotional space to talk and you just maybe don't want to talk, then let them know that like you're super busy right now and you have a lot going on. So you could say something like, hey, like, nice to see you, wish we could catch up, but I actually have a lot on my plate, let's talk later. And like, after doing this whole process and practicing that a lot before it actually happens, you're gonna want to remind yourself a lot to like stick to your guns. So when you do have those interactions, you don't have to get so wrapped up in them, and you can stick to your initial gun. So like if you do run into each other, or you don't, or you talk to each other, or you avoid each other, like either way, your ex is going to be at your head in some point in time. So don't let yourself like waver on what you know is right for you. We all know that like during a possible run-in with your ex, like they could say like, oh, you look really good, and after a comment like that, like emotions are going to be brought up, like no matter how much you push them down. So take a lot of deep breaths, like bring yourself back to a space where you can focus your attention back on yourself and your goals, like without that cloud and lingering of that compliment that was just thrown at you, to allow yourself to really process and go back to your initial space. Another important thing to do is like keep in mind that like you don't need to put on a show for other people. So you really need to be true to yourself and your feelings. It can be really tempting to act as if and want to kind of throw it in your ex's face that like you don't need them and that you're better off without them. But sometimes just like that's not the case, and it's normal to go through a grieving process after the loss of the relationship. So give yourself the space to like wrap your head around this transition, and just know that like if your process looks a lot different than maybe some of your friends, that's okay. Like you really need to be true to what your body needs and how your body needs to process this. And then finally, you're really going to want to like stick to your normal routine. So do what you normally do. Don't alter your whole schedule just because of one person in one situation. Again, if it's a safety concern, that's a different situation. But if you usually go to the gym in the morning, like keep going in the morning. If you usually go to trivia on Wednesdays, keep going on Wednesdays. Like during this tough transition, sometimes people find more comfort in the routine, and there's really no need to shift your complete schedule out of fear of running into your ex, because it could lead to increased symptoms and higher levels of isolation that are not going to be helpful down the road for you. So just really kind of big picture, remember that breakups are really tough and that these steps can be difficult to follow through with, and that's not always something that you're going to do with grace. But just keep in mind that number one is to keep yourself safe, and number two, like really use this time to lean on your support systems, and like don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. But that's kind of all I had for you guys today on breakups. So if you want to learn more about me and my services in Louisville, Kentucky, you can reach out on Instagram or Facebook, or follow my website and my blogs that I post at therapybyshannon.com. Okay,